There's just over a month and a half left until the release of episode 7, and even now we already have quite a few official leaks and news revealing many details about the new episode. Today, let's dive into the most detailed breakdown of everything we know about it. We'll discuss not only the plot, but also the characters' stories, potential returns, and how episode 7 will impact the entire amazing digital circus universe. Episode 7 will mark the beginning of the era of chaos in the digital circus, and it looks like Jax is about to take the spotlight. But before we talk about what lies ahead for him, let's quickly break down why Jax can't just enjoy the new adventure and instead chooses to isolate himself instead of joining everyone else. We've already gotten used to seeing Jax as the classic troublemaker, but after episode 6, some parts of the audience started viewing him much more negatively. It's important to understand that Jax himself realizes how wrong his behavior was. I think he actually feels ashamed for everything he said to Pomni, and even though he's still trying to keep up his cool guy act, deep down he just can't look Pomni in the eyes after everything that happened. So as usual, he chooses what he thinks is the only right option, to distance himself from everyone. Before we continue, I just want to say that the last few months have been pure madness, because during this time I changed 4 countries, and only today finally sorted out everything about my final move and rent. You can read more about it in the description. I'll just say it was hell that finally ended today, and starting tomorrow I'll be able to fully get back to working on this channel again. Anyway, let's keep going. After that, a lot of people started suspecting that Jax is actually on the verge of being abstracted, and that it's supposed to happen already in episode 7. Gooseworx herself told us a long time ago that we would never guess which character is closest to turning into an abstracted monster, and after episode 5, many were sure she was talking about Regatha. Now the whole narrative has completely changed, and the main candidate to repeat Kaufmo's fate is this purple rabbit. In this video, I want to dig into what's really going to happen to Jax in episode 7, and how likely it is that we'll actually see this character get abstracted. Before this episode, we saw Jax as just a fun-loving troublemaker with really specific jokes, and honestly, that's true. The thing is, we only looked at him from that side and didn't pay attention to the other signs that could have helped us understand this character way earlier than now. I did a deep dive investigation and can confidently say that today you're going to find out the truth about Jax in episode 7. The first sign that Jax is actually a deeper character with a really complex fate was the dialogue scene between Pomni and Jax in episode 5. And if we pay attention, Jax really badly wants to get things off his chest, and basically, he does. But if you look closer, you can see him turn away and purposely avoid looking at Pomni to immediately set some boundaries. That was the first scene ever where Jax genuinely talked to someone, and even if back then this scene didn't have much meaning for the story, now I want you to lock it in your head, because we're definitely going to come back to it. At this point, we realize that Jax has both a very simple and a very complicated view of the digital circus. He fully understands his role in this place and doesn't want to make things harder, and that's exactly where the problems begin. If we remember the scene where Jax snaps at Pomni, he literally trashes her feelings, shows the highest level of indifference, and acts as aggressive as possible. And at first it might seem like that's all Jax is. But we clearly remember how he reacted to the doors of his dead friends, how he most likely talked sincerely with Pomni, or that moment where he worries about Gangle even though she seems to be, let's say, his main target. You could expect anything but definitely not some sympathy. These two sides of Jax completely contradict each other, and in that case, one of them is fake. I'm sure that the Jax who always hides behind the mask of a cool guy doesn't really belong to our rabbit, but is just a defense mechanism, because now we realize that Jax actually has huge problems, and his life is literally at risk. I'm 100% sure that all those words and actions were done on purpose, just to push away everyone else stuck in the digital circus. With Zubul, he's had a pretty interesting dynamic for a while. With Gangle, I already talked about. Kinger acts like a crazy old man 99% of the time, so there's not much effort needed there. Regatha he doesn't take seriously at all, and only with Pomni things were going perfectly fine up until that moment.
Oh, we make such a good team!
Well, to be fair, our competition wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah, true. I suppose this is the part where one of us betrays the other. We could just be winners. As a team.
We're not a team, come on.
What do you mean? Yes, we are.
Delusional.
Weren't we kind of bonding over being chaotic evil together?
I was merely entertaining you because I thought it was funny.
It's pretty clear that all this so-called drama started right when Pomni began getting closer, and looking back at that scene, we now clearly see that Jax is actually a good guy you can have fun with or talk to, but nothing more. And it's not because it would get boring or he'd turn out dull, it's simply because Jax won't let it happen. And that's where his biggest problem comes in. Most likely he gets really attached to the characters close to him, and after they turn into an abstracted monster, his world keeps falling apart piece by piece. That's exactly why he can't handle any mentions of his friends and exactly why he reacted the way he did at Kaufmo's funeral or when Ribbit was brought up in episode 5. And now that we understand Jax's main problem and his personality, we can go back to the scene from the start of the video where Jax had a panic attack. That was the first time we noticed such unusual behavior from the rabbit, but I'm sure there were a few more incidents like that which just never made it on screen. If we think about it a bit and piece together the chain of events, it becomes obvious that this episode happened right after his failed talk with Pomni, which clearly left him upset. In that case, we realize that when Jax is sad, he's super vulnerable, and that's exactly why he keeps hiding behind that so-called cool guy mask. Only when he's in that so-called fun mood can Jax forget about the problems closing in on him from every side, and the biggest problem is his weakness. Knowing all this, a fair question comes up. Could Jax really get abstracted in episode 7? Yeah, he could, but that's not the only possible outcome. First, let's remember the leak where Goose straight up said that starting from episode 6, chaos would begin in the digital circus, and in that case, what can we call chaos at this point? If we count the start of these events with Jax as chaos, then his transformation into an abstracted monster seems more and more logical. But I think it's way more complicated than that, and Goose clearly meant something else by those words. We're gonna see some major changes in the digital circus, and it's hard to believe Jax won't be part of it. One thing's for sure, Jax needs support from someone else, and most likely we'll see some kind of attempt at that, and that therapist definitely ain't gonna be Caine. I think Pomni and Regatha will talk this problem over and decide that the only one who can really help Jax in this situation is Cougar, who actually knows how to handle stuff like this.
Maybe you just needed a break. It sounds to me like you put a lot of pressure on yourself to be there for everyone, and when you're not, you beat yourself up for it. You said you failed Pomni. Why do you feel that way? It was my fault we went down this path, wasn't it? I'm really sorry for that.
Why have you been acting so different lately?
I have, haven't I? I'm normally not too good with memories.
However, it's pretty unlikely our rabbit will let anyone get close to him, and way more likely we'll see him slowly losing that very spark that made him the favorite character for digital circus fans in the first place. These 3 leaks pretty much confirm that the new episode will be a repeat of episode 5, and in episode 7 we'll see at least 3 different adventures. I don't think there's much point in talking too much about A Day at the Beach, since it's all pretty obvious, and if you want to learn more in detail, you can check it out here and here. We also have a one-word description of episode 7 from the voice actors, and in the context of the adventures, the ones that interest us most are the descriptions from Caine's voice actor, Chinese, and from Gooseworx, Shrimp. I already told you that this is a reference to Chinese culture, but I didn't mention that most likely it'll be something related to cooking. The description from Caine's voice actor is especially important to us, since his character is basically the one who comes up with and creates all the new adventures. It's quite possible that we'll see something similar to what happened back in episode 4, only this time all the characters will take part in cooking dishes. An adventure like that could definitely bring the digital circus characters closer together, and I'm more than sure this kind of adventure will actually happen in episode 7. If we remember episode 6, where Caine failed to get everyone interested in his trust-based adventure, then at least this time he might succeed, since in the kitchen teamwork and mutual understanding are absolutely essential. Also, many have already forgotten about the series of posts from Gooseworx, where she mentioned mummies. At first glance, it might look like just another batch of Goose's humor, but if we all remember how the creators sometimes tease future episode events in totally non-obvious posts, I've got a feeling that's what's happening here too, and it's pretty likely mummies could turn into key figures of the new episode. Off that, I came up with a crazy theory that could flip everything we've seen so far. As we remember from the pilot, Caine's able to spy on everything happening across the digital circus, and if we take another look at the scene with the favorite character awards, it's clear that at that moment, our toothy admin was busy. But he's got plenty of eyes through all those mannequins, and they definitely spotted what went down with Jax and told him. Caine's already on the edge, but he's never going to back off from his main job, entertaining the folks in the digital circus. So after hearing what happened to Jax, he tried talking to him, but it didn't work out. And after that, he's going to do his classic move, gather everybody together and send them on a new adventure, and that's where things are going to get really interesting. The new adventures either going to take place in some kind of cave, or in a place that sorta looks like Mildenhall Manor. But this time, instead of angels and the undead, our characters are going to be fighting off a squad of crazed mummies to reach some kind of goal. It might end up being maple syrup like in episode 2 or something along those lines, but that's not the main point. Caine wouldn't be himself if he didn't spice up the new adventure, so this time he's going to throw in a spy. Maybe all the characters will get split up, and at first they'll need to find each other before even moving on to the main goal of the new adventure, and I got a feeling like always, they'll end up split into pairs. And now we come back to that spy I mentioned. It's going to be Jax, disguised as a mummy. That way, he can stick to doing the kind of things he's most used to.
Come on, Sadie. You're coming with me.
I'm actually gonna be on a team with Zubul.
What? No, you're not. We've been together for every team adventure in the past.
Guess times are changing, bunny boy.
But on top of that, he'll also be able to hear what the others say about him. Just like all the NPC mummies, Jax is going to know about the secret passages, hidden rooms, and unnoticed spots in the new adventure's location. And when he hides to scare someone, he could easily overhear people talking about him. That could actually work in his favor, and if that's the case, the theory that Jax starts changing for the better from episode 7 onward might end up being true. But Jax might also catch something nasty said about him, and then, well, that's better left for another video. Let's take a little break from Jax and talk more about the new adventure as a whole. For a sort of reference, I'm going to stick with episode 3, because it's the one that feels the closest in vibe to what episode 7's adventure could be. Back then, we saw how there were these kind of portals between locations, and I'd say it's pretty likely that the mansion-like place won't be the only spot in the new adventure. I can totally imagine a moment where all the characters get sucked into some cave, and from there they gotta face all kinds of trials, dodging the crazed mummies while trying to track down some all-powerful artifact, and then bring it back to the so-called king of that location. This means we'll have at least 3 distinct adventures in episode 7, and considering that this episode is set to be the longest so far, we can confidently expect them to be much longer than those in episode 5. These adventures will fully round out the character development, and only after that will we finally get to the main part of episode 7, which will unveil numerous secrets, one of which was hinted at in episode 6. And if we go back to that scene with Zubul, it's super easy to catch why that triggered such a strong reaction from Caine. Basically, the digital circus is a place where the characters are only supposed to have fun and not think about any real human stuff. But with that line, Zubul literally went against the rules of the circus. And that kind of behavior is bound to mess with the programmed AI system, which is why we've been seeing so much aggression and glitches lately. There's a good chance Caine's just straight up tired of all this, and when he's looking at that photo, you can tell the thoughts hitting him to just end it all and send everyone back to the real world, so he won't be stuck alone with them anymore. Like we remember episode 6 was the breaking point between the calm in the digital circus and the straight up madness, and C&A, including that room, are going to be a key part of everything that happens next. What do y'all think this room really means? Drop your guesses in the comments, and let's keep it rolling. Like I already said, this spot is for sure going to play a big role in the future, but I'm pretty sure episode 7's only going to be the start of uncovering the main mystery of the digital circus. For the longest time, we thought the letter A in C&A stood for Albert Spudsey, and that he was supposedly one of the founders of the circus. But episode 6 dropped some details that could totally flip the way we see everything. Let's rewind to one insanely important scene for us.
Oh, I got just the thing. Here, take this.
Well, wait.
Of course, a lot of people instantly started throwing around the idea that Cougar might actually be one of the creators of the digital circus, because he's got some abilities that nobody else seems to have. Backing up that theory is the fact that this scene comes literally right after the one with Caine. So I can toss out a pretty bold theory that Cougar's actually Albert Spudsey, and all those mentions back in episode 4 were kind of like a hidden nod to it. But if we think back to the Cougar we're used to,
We all got briefs on our characters. I'm your assistant. Don't worry, Gangle, I'll get it for you.
like from the very first second, it really feels like he's completely nuts and can't control the way he acts. But if you look at it from another angle, that kind of behavior actually gives Cougar a bunch of advantages, because he's basically a shadow in the digital circus, since nobody ever takes him seriously, and he can watch everybody else while staying invisible himself. I was also really intrigued by that scene where it seems like Cougar purposely dragged Pomni along to get a better read on who she is and what kind of feelings she's getting from the digital circus. Plus, at times we see Cougar as pretty wise and level-headed too. And then, there's that scene with Pomni from episode 3. Taking all this into account, you can really start to safely assume, and even be pretty sure, that Cougar is Albert Spudsey, and therefore one of the creators of the digital circus. And these hints from Glitch and Goose just keep pushing us to think that's the case. That's especially intriguing because I'm 100% sure that room wasn't shown to us for no reason. And even if it really is the exit from the digital circus, things might not be as rosy as they seem at first glance. A couple months back, we noticed that pretty much everyone who told their story somehow mentioned abandoned buildings. So it's totally possible that the office transferring real people's minds into the digital circus is inside one of those places. Judging by how this room looks now compared to how it did originally, you can easily say that even if this really is the exit from the digital circus, it's been dead for a long time already. And in that case, it's actually super interesting whether our favorite characters can even make it back to the real world in one piece. Can they even come back at all? Because it's pretty likely their bodies in the real world ain't breathing anymore. And the digital circus is like this kind of digital immortality, letting people live out an endless imitation of life in a place where basically nothing matters. Ribbit is one of the most mysterious characters in the digital circus right now. We don't really know much about him, but a lot of people are already sure we're definitely going to see him in one of the future episodes. And honestly, the latest official updates about this character keep giving us more and more proof of that. It all started back in episode 5 when we first got some info that such a character even exists, and then we finally saw what he looked like. After that, Ribbit instantly became topic number 1 among digital circus fans, and things got even crazier when Goose dropped the full concept art of this character. On top of that, we got a small glimpse of his emotions, which once again proved that this character is going to be important for the future storyline of the digital circus. But after that, things calmed down a lot, all the way up till the release of episode 6 when this topic popped up again in that very scene. If in episode 5 we were only getting hints about how important this character might be, then in episode 6 they straight up confirmed it by putting a huge spotlight on the door to his room. After that, the whole situation started blowing up because one user on X noticed an interesting detail and asked Ribbit's gender was confirmed by Sean on the TIDC livestream today. But literally right after that, Michael Kovac shut this down, saying Sean totally said M, referring to them. But that's exactly where things started getting way more interesting because another user asked Michael Kovac straight up, didn't Goose confirm Ribbit was he/him a while ago? And got this response, nope, Goose will say something vague, fans misinterpret it, and the fandom clings to the misinterpretation. I'm worried about fans being disappointed when certain things turn out to be misinformation, as if Goose lied when she never confirmed anything to begin with. What really got me hooked was this part of Michael's answer, because we remember the whole convo was about Ribbit being a boy, and most fans already see him that way. With his response, Michael kinda hinted that we shouldn't just spread the first thing that pops into our heads, because later on, it might turn out false. Pretty likely he was talking about Ribbit in that context, and when everyone finally finds out his actual gender, a lot of folks might end up disappointed since they already pictured him as a boy. All this once again proves Ribbit's gonna play a major role in the future episodes, which means his appearance is pretty much inevitable. On top of that, the voice actor for Zooble during one of the live streams said this.
Using knowledge I have of Ribbit that you guys don't have yet, Ribbit's smash.
Uh-oh.
So we already got a couple official confirmations that Ribbit's got a fleshed out backstory that's going to be revealed later, and if we put all this info together, then right now, I'm 100% sure we're definitely going to see this character in the upcoming episodes, maybe even real soon. We're going to find out everything that happened to him way before the pilot episode, and how it messed with the future of the digital circus. But right now, I want to tell you one of those secrets. There were also theories that Jax himself had something to do with what happened, which is exactly why he's so good at dodging any mention of it. Jax is doing literally everything he can just to switch the topic, and that's pretty much where Ribbit's whole reveal in episode 5 ended. But after the episode dropped, we got a lil concept art show in Ribbit. Plus, way before episode 5 even came out, Goose already spilled some info that Ribbit abstracted not too long ago. There were tons of different theories about what really went down with Ribbit, but episode 5 was only the start of that story. Then in episode 6, we got some more hints about this character, and that's where things got real crazy, because in that same scene we also saw Kaufmo's door, and Jax, at least to me, seemed mad when he saw it, while his reaction to Ribbit's door was totally different. Remember how a couple months back I told you all that theory that Pomni might kinda be Ribbit's reincarnation, since at first Pomni was supposed to be a frog, but then the creators switched her design to a jester. And if we draw that kind of parallel, it gets way easier to figure out what really happened to Ribbit even before the pilot dropped, and why Jax turned into such a jerk right after that. Let's go back to that Regatha and Jax convo scene.
I know exactly what you're doing with Pomni, and it'll never work!
Huh?
You know, getting close with Pomni. To corrupt her.
By this point, a lot of folks were already wondering why Ragatha sounded so damn sure about Jax's intentions. What happened next only made all those theories and guesses even stronger, cause that kind of rage from Jax was totally uncalled for, which means Ragatha once again managed to hit Jax right where it hurts. All this was a pretty long dive before the main story even kicked in, and if we bring back that parallel with Pomni, it's easy to see Ribbit was originally a real friendly and kind of character, but after meeting him, a lot of things changed. In one of my vids, I already told y'all how Jax used to have talks like that with Ribbit. We can see this whole act and fake thing actually messes up the character's mental health real bad. And after meeting Jax, Ribbit, instead of keeping on being that same sweetheart he used to be at the very start of his life in the digital circus, decided to throw on a mask that totally went against who he really was. In the context of today's topic, it's crazy important to remember these words from Jax.
I do not care about you or anyone else in this circus in the slightest. End of story.
Now we get that all this stuff Jax says is just him trying to, keep up his mask that protects him from the nasty consequences that sooner or later are gonna mess with this bunny big time. On top of that, Jax does all this to keep everyone at a distance, and even though it's straight up fallout from losing his best friend, we can see that the seeds of this kind of behavior probably already existed in Jax back when he was friends with Ribbit. The bunny was living in the digital circus even before Ribbit showed up, and probably already witnessed a few other characters get abstracted. After getting close to Ribbit, Jax did everything he thought was right, not just to avoid turning into that kind of creature himself, but also to save his best friend from the same fate. On one hand, Jax was helping his friend, but I feel like it actually just made Ribbit's life harder. Still, because of his strong attachment to Jax, he couldn't say a word. Ribbit lived by the rules Jax set for him, totally ignoring his own wants, and even though he had fun sometimes, pretending like that slowly started driving the little frog insane. For a while, he kept listening to his so-called more experienced mentor, convinced it was the only way to survive in this digital space. Imagine being in Ribbit's shoes. You're naturally a kind soul, and for some reason, you end up in a place so unreal that you could literally lose your mind in a second. It's scary at first, but over time you start interacting with the others, and things seem kinda okay. Then Jax shows up and starts laying out everything that happened before you got here, and of course you freak out. He tells you there's this thing called an abstracted monster, and bit by bit, you start noticing more and more rooms of characters who've gone through it. After all that, your best friend tells you to find your archetype and then everything will be fine, so you listen and slowly start living that way. But we all remember what kind of character Ribbit really is, and now think back to Jax's entertainment. Ribbit totally knew this wasn't how it should be, but with Jax constantly preaching at him, he had no choice but to listen and do the same. This went on day after day, and of course that struggle between his mask and his real self couldn't just vanish without a trace, and slowly, Ribbit started noticing changes in himself. With each day, it just got worse and worse, and in the end, we all know where that led. By protecting him, Jax only ended up hurting his friend, and that's exactly why he's scared to make any new real friends.
Oh, we make such a good team.
I think he totally gets that Ribbit turning into an abstracted monster is completely on him, and that pain just keeps crushing down on Jax harder and harder every single day. Let's get this out of the way right away. The chance of Ribbit showing up as the actual living character we know is basically zero. After episode 5, I had this theory that weird mannequin could be Ribbit, but honestly, the more I think about it now, the less I buy into that. However, the fact that Ribbit is definitely going to play a major role in the new episode is already basically 100% confirmed. I'm totally sure that in episode 7 we'll see Jax's memories where Ribbit is the key character. That's where we'll learn the full truth about what really went down with him, and what's got me hyped just as much. They'll show us Jax before he turned into such a jerk. As usual, I'm looking forward to your thoughts in the comments, and see you in the next video.